Victreebel is arguably one of the best Pokemon in Generation 1. Not only does it have an amazing base stat total of 420, it's great attack, great special, pretty good speed for a grass-type Pokemon, and the medium-slow level-up group give this Pokemon a lot of advantages. But it's really its moveset where it shines. In spite of the fact that it doesn't really have any level up moves outside of Wrap and Poison Powder, it starts the game at level 5 with Sleep Powder, Stun Spore, Acid, and Razor Leaf. By far and away one of the most broken level 5 movesets in the entire generation. On top of that, while it doesn't get a lot of TM compatibility, it does get Swords Dance and Body Slam to go together with things like Mega Drain and Solar Beam. So while it's a very small moveset, it's a very good moveset overall. But this raises a question: could this Pokemon beat Pokemon Yellow on Super Minimum Battles? Could it beat Pokemon Red and Blue on Super Minimum Battles? Well, I'm going to be doing 2 back-to-back runs to see how this Pokemon performs on these settings and find out if in a solo challenge it truly is one of the top Pokemon in the generation. So Professor Oak's going to find this legendary Victreebel just outside of Powder Town. He's pretty sure that Erica must have been dropping acid again, which caused this Pokemon to escape, but that's perfectly fine. He's going to give it to a 10-year-old kid because, hey, who doesn't need a Pokemon at level 5 that knows acid? So we have our Super Bell at level 5 with its completely broken moveset. So now we're going to start off on minimum battles with this Pokemon, where we can simply come up against the Eevee. We're going to move Razor Leaf into the top slot, and Razor Leaf is effectively a guaranteed critical hit here. It has a 1 in 256 chance not to crit, so it's an easy 2-hit KO there on the rival. And the reason that Victreebel is so good in a solo challenge is because of the fact that as we go through the early game here, we don't actually have a whole lot of walls in this first section of the game. Consider that unlike other grass types, we have acid to cover opponents like bug types with a super effective move because poison is super effective in this generation. And for anything else, we can simply put them to sleep and rely on critical hits to get us through. Our type advantages against the first 3 gyms really will help when we can't take extra battles. So the question is just how do we do in the middle game when we get to opponents like Koga, for example, who have super effective moves in Psychic and Psybeam, and of course Blaine with his fire types later on in the game. Now, this is where we're going to see a lot of differences between Pokemon Red and Blue and Pokemon Yellow. I'm pretty confident we can do this in Yellow. I'm not so sure we can do it in Red and Blue. I'll break that down as we go through. So of course, we've done a little bit of setup in this ROM in order to do all the sequence breaks. We're starting off with a freshwater in the bag. You could trade this via Pokemon Stadium 2. And we have our HM Mew that knows Cut, Surf, Teleport, and Dig. These moves are pretty important at the beginning of the game. We'll break them down as we go through. But for now, we just go through like it's a normal minimum battles run. We just have one fight to take here in Viridian Forest against this bug catcher. In Pokemon Yellow, he has a level 10 Caterpie, and we really don't care about this Pokemon. We're just going to spam acid, and it's going to be a 2-hitter after a crit to easily get through that fight and get to level 8. Now, this is one reason why medium slow level up group Pokemon are really good in the Brock section, because we get to level 8 naturally here by beating Rival 1 and beating that bug catcher. We get our first damage rounding threshold right there before we get to the first gym leader. That will not be the case in Pokemon Red and Blue, so let's just see if it makes any difference or not, starting with Brock here in Pokemon Yellow. So against Brock, we are simply going to use Razor Leaf. There's no reason to do anything else. It's going to be a critical hit. It one-shots the first Geodude. We get to level 9 here, and then Onix is faster, but we can simply knock it out with a single Razor Leaf. The only way that we would ever have any risk there is really if it landed Bind over and over and over again, and we just could never move. But outside of that, that is a guaranteed victory. So it took 7 minutes and 1 second just because I was doing some of the setup in the background in order to get all my sequence breaks ready, but really no difficulty as we get through the first gym and we are ready to move on in the game. And now in the next section on Route 3, there are really no trainers that are any major difficulty for us. Against all these bugs, we can simply spam the move Acid. It's at least neutrally effective against Weedle, and of course we can't be poisoned, so this is very, very easy. We will get access to Wrap right here after we knock out this next youngster, and we will add that move over Stun Spore. We're generally going to be faster faster than opponents, so there's really not much risk to simply having access to wrap in case we need to get an opponent in a KO range. When we get to some poison types later in the game, for example, we might need that strategy. And because we have a pretty decent attack stat, wrap actually does good enough damage that we can get through fights at this point pretty easily with that move. Still, we'll stick with acid and razor leaf as much as possible since they are the much stronger moves, but in cases against poison types, we might end up using wrap if we have a tough range. But now on super minimum battles, we have to heal here in this Pokemon Center just before Mount Moon. We don't technically have to, but this is the last time that we will be able to heal for quite a while. So I'm also going to grab potions here. We're going to have to beat Misty without healing anywhere else, because otherwise we would have to take additional optional battles in order to get to Vermilion City. Whereas by healing here before Mount Moon, we can actually teleport back here in order to avoid two trainers that block the way to the third gym. So let's make our way right to the super nerd at the end of this section. He's got a Grimer, of course. I honestly think that all things being equal, probably Razor Leaf does the most damage, but I'm going to go for Wrap here just to whittle this Pokemon down. We are faster, so there's really no risk here. We can easily knock it out. We could learn Poison Powder here. We are not going to learn Poison Powder. We don't need that move. And now we're simply going to go Razor Leaf on the Voltorb, get an easy one-hit KO. And now on the Coughing, really, honestly, Razor Leaf is probably faster. It turns out to be a two-hitter to get through right there as we get to level 16. So let's pick up the Dome Fossil because we know it's the superior fossil. And now take on Jesse and James. Against their Ekans, once again, I think Razor Leaf is the way to go. It's not like there's anything this Pokemon can really do to us. We knock it out in 2 hits. Out comes the Meowth. Bite did a lot of damage, but we one-shot with a critical hit Razor Leaf and get to level 17. Now against the Coughing, we're just once again going to go for the Razor Leaf spam. It's an easy 2-hitter, and we get through with no difficulty. Honestly, at this point in the game, there was really no reason to be using Sleep Powder or anything like that. I think we're perfectly fine to get through this section pretty consistently, at least by just going Razor Leaf. Honestly, Wrap was probably just a waste of time. But now going into Misty's gym, I'm just going to heal up with a couple potions because we cannot heal in this Pokemon Center. So let's see if we have enough PP to get through this fight. First up, we have the Goldeen at level 19, of course, but we can simply one-shot it with a single critical hit Razor Leaf, and it's time for the second gym leader. So against Misty, we're just going to go for the Razor Leaf on the first Staryu. It's an easy one-hit KO. Out next comes the Starmie. Now Starmie's only going to use Tackle and Harden here. Harden doesn't matter because we're just using a special move, and we can see that it's a 2-hit KO with Razor Leaf. So we easily get through that fight as we get to level 19. 11 minutes 46 seconds to get through Misty with no reset so far. This is where we can see how a grass type like Victreebel is potentially much better at this sort of run than something like a Starmie that we did last time. Starmie, being a water type, didn't really have any good moves to use against Misty here, whereas Victreebel, super effective moves, easily gets through, and on top of that, that means that we can now make our way to Celadon City, because Misty gives us the ability to use Cut outside of battle, and we already have a Cut user via our HM Mew that was traded in from another cartridge. And that means that we simply come down here to the guard down here in this gate, and because Pokemon Stadium 2 lets us transfer non-key items, so something like a freshwater or a potion or a TM is perfectly fine to transfer, while something like the Pokeflute is not. We already have our freshwater here. We can simply come to the guard, give it to him, and we have made it to Saffron City. No need to fight rival number 2, no need to go to Bill's house, no need to go through the rock tunnel. We can make our way straight to Celadon. Now we're still not going to heal here, of course, because we have to be able to teleport back to before Mount Moon. So we'll simply cut here. Let's get the Fly HM. Let's take care of getting a few other TMs and then make our way back to Lieutenant Surge. And we will be using the Pokédoll glitch. So we have gone ahead and gotten ourselves a Pokédoll so that we can use that in this next section as well. And honestly, the question is just, do we go to the Lieutenant Surge immediately, or do we take some other battles first? There are actually quite a few logical battles to take. For one, we might actually just be able to go in and beat Erica. We have Sleep Powder. We're obviously smarter than she is, so we should be able to get this fight to work as long as we just heal up going in. The question is just if we deal enough damage. damage. Still, I'm going to try it at least once just so that we can know for sure, and maybe if we get lucky, we'll get access to Mega Drain here. So here against Erica, she leads off with Tangela. Yes, it's faster than us, but I'm still just going to try to put this Pokemon to sleep and then start going for Acid on it. And let's just see what kind of damage we do. It looks to be a 4-hit KO with Acid, and we get through that Pokemon just fine as we get to level 21. Out comes the Weepinbell, and now Weepinbell's AI is set that it's only going to use Acid against us because it thinks that all of its Grass-type moves are resisted, but the interaction between Poison and Grass, it's actually only looking at our Grass type here. So she's just going to drop Acid on us. That did a lot of damage. We actually have to manage to land a Sleep Powder to get through this. Unfortunately, we lose on the first attempt. And unfortunately, we're slower than Tangela, so if it goes for Bind a bunch of times, we actually lose to the first Pokemon. So this fight just doesn't quite seem to be possible at this point, so we'll backtrack out and try something else. Still, honestly, within a couple levels, I expect that fight to not actually be all that hard, so we're just going to leave it for now and move on instead to Lavender Town. Now you might ask, why Lavender? Why not go to fight Lieutenant Surge now? It's actually because we have a pretty easy way to cheese the fight against rival number 4. First, we've got to fight this Clefairy girl, of course, but she shouldn't be too much of an issue. We are faster than the Clefairy, so we'll simply put them to sleep and just go for some Razor Leafs. I'm just putting them to sleep because they could try to put me to sleep and I don't want to deal with that. So it's easier if we simply sleep them first, and then they're just sitting ducks for us as we sit and spam Razor Leaf. So now we can come into the Rival 4 fight, and this is actually one of the fights that I think is much easier in Pokemon Yellow than Pokemon Red and Blue, especially when you have a Pokemon that is weak to flying. You see, this Fearow only knows one flying type move, which is Mirror Move, so that's the only move it's going to use against us. So if we just go for something like Sleep Powder to put it to sleep, even if we missed, it would just Sleep Powder against us over and over and over again. Now that it is asleep though, we're going to drop Acid on this Pokemon, and it appears to be a 5-hit KO. We get a nice defense drop there though, so 4 hits to knock that Pokemon out. Out next comes the Magnemite. It knows Sonic Boom, that's why I'm putting it to sleep here. I don't want to take 20 fixed damage. And here the Razor Leaf looks to be a 2-hit KO. Out next is Shelder. This is an easy one-hitter with a Stab Razor Leaf. And then Sandshrew gets more of the same. Finally, Eevee, it knows Sand Attack. That's the only reason I'm putting it to sleep here, is just to avoid the Sand Attack spam, and then we can go for the Razor Leafs and yet again get an easy 2-hit KO victory as we get to level 23. So the rival is a joke. He's actually no problem whatsoever, and now we can technically go through the Ghastlies in this section of the game. I'm just going to go ahead and get access to a couple of PP restoration items here just so that we can heal up if we need to, but let's go ahead and see if we can actually manage to get through one of the channelers here. Of course, the channelers don't have smart AI and we have sleep, so even though our moves aren't super strong here, they might just be enough. So against the Ghastly, we're at the same level. Obviously, we're going to be slower here. We get hit by Nightshade, but then we put the first Ghastly to sleep. We can go for the Razor Leaf just to see the range here. It looks to be a 3 or 4 hit KO range with critical hits. We've actually run out of PP there, so I'm going to go Acid now. We knock out the first Ghastly. So even though they're 4 times resisting the move, it doesn't actually make that big of a difference. Now we put this Ghastly back to sleep after it wakes up, and we got a defense drop. So we should get through a little bit faster. It's still a 5-hit KO to get through, but we managed to beat the first Channeler with no difficulty whatsoever, even without restoring PP. And now we can come here to get the free heal from the Purified Protected Zone and make our way further up the tower where we can just fight these other channelers. They're only sporting one Pokemon that's 1 level higher, so it's really not that much more difficult to get through these trainers. So we're just going to come up here and spam Razor Leaf since it is the stronger move, and it appears to be a 4-hit KO. We get paralyzed, but that's fine. We can just go back down and heal at the Purified Protected Zone, provided that we actually manage to hit something. So not perfectly consistent by any means, but these are definitely winnable fights. So it ends up taking 1 reset on each of these channelers on the upper level, but still we managed to get through without too much difficulty, and we can just heal up before we go and fight Jesse and James. Now Jesse and James might be really hard here because of the fact that they have pretty high level Pokemon at this point, and they're sporting moves like Sludge and Bite, which could do significant damage, but I'm still going to give them a good shot. First up though, we've got to get through Cubone's mother, which of course we just give a dolly to a ghost, and that's clearly enough to make it work. So now Jesse and James time. This is going to be a kind of tough battle, I think, but let's just see. We're 3 levels lower than the Meowth. It goes Growl though, which does not matter. We're simply going to go for the Razor Leaf after that, and it's going to be a 2-hit KO on this Pokemon. Out next comes Arbok. It goes Bite, which did pretty significant damage, 19 damage from the first hit, but we can go for our Razor Leaf, which thanks to its guaranteed critical hit here is going to be about a 4-hit KO. We get a Leer there, which is not great, but we do manage to get through, and now we are faster than the Wheezing, so we just need to put this Pokemon to sleep and keep it asleep, and we should be able to win this fight. We are getting on low health just due to some sleep powder misses, but we still managed to win on the first attempt, and we're all the way up to level 25, which really isn't that much lower than a lot of Pokemon would normally be at this point in the game, thanks to that medium slow level up group. So we can save Mr. Fuji. We're going to tell him all about giving dollies to ghosts. He's going to say, how did I never realize that? I've been doing all of my research all these years. And so he's just going to reward us with a flute. Thanks. And like that, we can make our way back. I'm going to try Erica one time. I'm going to go heal at the Purified Protected Zone so that I have full PP. And let's just see if we can actually manage to beat her now. Again, I would go and heal at a Pokemon Center, but we have to be able to teleport back to before Mount Moon if we're going to stay on super minimum battles. Thus, I'm coming here to get a free heal this way. So here against Erica, we're still slower than Tangela. It goes Constrict though, which isn't really that big of a deal. And we can see that Sleep Powder is definitely doing a lot more damage here. It appears to be a 3-hit KO, so we get through with 69 HP remaining before we level up. Now we have gotten to the Weepin' Bell, which also is still 1 point of speed faster than us, but it doesn't seem like it did as much damage with the acid. We get a nice defense drop there, so we're going to be able to knock it out on this turn, and now we should be faster than Gloom. That's why I stuck with this one. We're down to 2 HP, but if we can just manage to land Sleep on this Pokemon, we should actually be able to win here. We get a nice defense drop, and just like that, we beat Erica on the first attempt after we went and fought everything in the Pokemon Tower. 27 minutes, 37 seconds to get through that. 5 resets so far, but really not doing that bad. Compared to the Starmie run that we did a couple weeks back, this is much better up to this point in the game. And with that done, we now have 3 gym badges. We can still think about when we actually want to go back and fight Lieutenant Surge, but I'm gonna just hold off on that for a minute, because there is one move that we can get access to that I think is super important in this run, and I think is the reason why it would be worthwhile to put that off just a little bit longer. I'm going to heal up, so I'm going to get some Soda Pops so that I can heal up faster here, and then make my way over to Silph Co. Now, because our Pokemon doesn't learn growth, we only have 1 badge boosting move that we can get, but that is of course Swords Dance. It's another reason why I think that these grass types are kind of overpowered in minimum battles solo runs, because getting access to a badge boosting move like Swords Dance that's also legitimately useful in a lot of spots is kind of important. So to get Swords Dance, we just have to beat this one Rocket that is blocking the card key, and he's just a matter of putting him to sleep and spamming the Razor Leaf from there. It's going to be a 4-hit KO because we're 6 levels lower than this Pokemon. In fact, it's going to take 5 hits, but he only went Leer against us because yeah, AI in Gen 1 was amazing. So we easily get the card key, and now we can go get that move. And now with Swords Dance in hand, I think the move that we forget is going to be Wrap. Acid is a same type move that can also drop defense. So in spite of the fact that it's going to be resisted by a lot of Pokemon, the defense drops actually make it pretty darn strong when stacked with Swords Dance. Razor Leaf, on the other hand, of course, is like the best same type move that we can have for quite a while, especially because we don't learn growth. So we're going to just forget the Wrap. We don't really need to go Wrap strats too much here. Swords Dance is probably the play. And now we can even test this. We can just try one attempt at rival number 5 and see if the Swords Dance strats are enough here. Obviously, the issue is going to be that Kadabra. We should get through the Cloister just fine, I think, but Kadabra could be a wall. Anyway, let's just find out. So the rival leads off with Sandslash. Now, this Pokemon will only use Poison Sting against us because of its AI, so we're simply going to try to take advantage of that. We are going to put it to sleep. Now we're going to set up 3 Swords Dances here just so that we have the maximum power. And now against this Pokemon, Razor Leaf is the play. It's going to be a 2-hit KO, but we easily get through that one. Out next is the Cloister. It goes Aurora Beam, which did massive damage, and we do not quite one-shot with our Razor Leaf. So we can basically say this fight's not functionally going to happen at this point because we don't outspeed and Cloister is doing too much damage. And that's the one spot where we kind of wish that we had Weepinbell's moveset where we would have Growth at this point. In spite of the fact that we would be stuck with only Vine Whip, Growth would have the advantage, of course, of allowing us to boost our special and thus be more survivable there. However, with Victreebel, we don't get that move. So instead, I'm going to make my way to Lieutenant Surge at this point. I think it's the best way to go. And because we could simply cut and then go through the Diglett Cave here, we get to skip the 2 trainers that normally block the way to get to Vermilion City, and that means that we can simply go straight to Lieutenant Surge. Remember, we already have cut, so we don't need to even go see rival number 3 in the SSN. This is the simple way to get through this section with fewer battles. And after digging through the trash, we can come see our favorite trash man, Lieutenant Surge. Let's see if we can beat him. So here against Lieutenant Surge, I'm going to lead off by using a Sleep Powder just because I think it's the best strategy. Now we will go into the Razor Leafs here. It's going to be a 2-hit KO. From the looks of things, he X speeds. He stayed asleep. It didn't matter. We easily beat Lieutenant Surge in 32 minutes, 59 seconds. We have learned 1 TM. We have 6 resets so far. Really not doing too bad. Now is the section of the game, though, where I think we might have to think about using some rare candies. We're still too slow to outspeed anything on the Rivals team, and we're actually going to still be too slow to outspeed anything on Koga's team. Now, there are 2 required trainers inside of Koga's gym that maybe, just maybe, can gain us a level or 2, but after that, I think we might need rare candies to continue to progress. So let's just get a bicycle and make our way down to Fuchsia. Now, it's important to note that on super minimum battles, we are giving up a couple of rare candies. We don't get the rare candy inside of the Rocket hideout, and we cannot get the rare candy that's available at the power plant because both are blocked by optional trainers. We will, however, get one more rare candy here on the cycling road after we run away from the Snorlax, and that should at least give us a few to use in this section. Because we've also beaten Erica, we can actually get one more rare candy from the Warden's house as well. Obviously, the best strategy in most runs is to save rare candies for the end of the game, but in a case like this where we just need to outspeed a key opponent in order to start setting up our sleep plus our Swords Dance, it might be worth it to slam a few here. So if we need them, we have 5 rare candies currently in the bag. So if we slammed them all now, we could get to level 33, but I'm going to see if I can gain some levels first. So of course, there are 2 jugglers that we have to fight here, but we're already faster than these Drowsies. So it's really only the Kadabra that's going to outspeed us. So I'm just going to put the Drowsies to sleep and now set up Swords Dance. Of course, Confusion, if it hits, will do massive damage, but if we can set up 3 Swords Dances here, we might just be able to sweep with Acid. And sure enough, with 3 Swords Dances, these are 1-hit KOs. Psybeam does knock us out on this first attempt, but keep in mind that Kadabra can also use Confusion, and it doesn't have Smart AI, so it might even go for Disable or Recover here. This time we get Recover from Kadabra, so we knock it out in a single hit as we get to level 29, and then against the last Drowsy, we got a critical hit. The crit is bad when you have 6 stages of attack, so yeah, we didn't actually want that, but it went Disable, so that was perfectly fine. We win on the second attempt. That brings us to the second juggler that also has a Drowsy and a Hypno, but let's just see if we can get this to go. So once again, we have to land the sleep here, and we don't land the sleeps, so we get knocked out on the first attempt. However, with all of these Swords Dances set up, we can now use Acid in one shot against that first Drowsy. Out comes the Hypno, it goes Disable. We're trying to put this Pokemon to sleep to avoid that confusion confusion. The critical hit might have mattered there, but it knocks us out with a single hit. This time we survive a confusion from the hypno, but it's a 2-hit KO here with the acid, and we get flinched, so we get knocked out on the next turn. So we are going to go sleep powder here on the hypno. Fortunately, it went disable this time, so we can put it to sleep, and now we get a critical hit on the first acid, but we knock it out with the next one. We get to level 30, and now we go acid on the drowsy. Yet again, we get a critical hit. We don't want to see crits here, but we knock it out this time. So 3 attempts to get through that second juggler, but it did ultimately work out. And now we've made it all the way up to level 30. We're up to 50 speed. I'm not sure if we outspeed the Venonats or not at this point. So I'm going to try the fight, and if we don't outspeed, we might think about rare candies here. Whatever we do, we're going to have to survive against that final Venomoth, but I think there is a chance we could do it. We'll break it down. So here against Koga's first Venonat, it is 1 point of speed faster than us, so we will not outspeed any of the Pokemon here. But we can also say that this Venonat, based on Koga's AI, is only going to use one of 2 moves. It's either going to use Toxic or Psychic. The reason it might use Toxic, in spite of the fact that it can't affect us, is because the way the game considers type effectiveness when it's using smart AI. In that case, it simply looks at a list of type matchups and takes the first entry that it can find. And it turns out that the fact that grass is weak to poison is higher up on the list than poison being resisted by poison. So it just takes that first interaction, grass is weak to poison, and it thinks that poison moves are super effective. So we have a 50-50 chance that this Pokemon will not damage us with one of its moves. Here it goes Toxic. Of course, we miss the Sleep Powder, and then it goes for Psychic the next turn, so we're probably already losing here. But still, it's worth just noting that this is not technically impossible to get free turns to set up here. After all the setup though, it's still a 2-hit KO on the first Venonat with our acid. We get Toxic from the second Venonat as we put it to sleep, and this one appears to be a 2-hitter as well after a critical hit. Then we get to the third Venonat, it goes Psychic, and that ended us, but we can see that there is a chance to get through here. Now this third Venonat has 55 speed, and we actually leveled up, getting us to 52 speed here. So with 3 levels, we might be able to outspeed all the Venonats, and then it just comes down to the final Venomoth. And while we could go back and try the rival again, we're still going to be outsped there, and he still has super effective moves. So I think this is the best strategy, is simply to drop some rare candies until we can outspeed all of the Venonats. After 3 rare candies, we're actually in a speed tie. So now at level 33, let's try this fight again, where against the first Venonat, we're now faster, so we just need to land the Sleep Powder and set up the Swords Dances right here. This one might even be a 1-hit KO. I'm still going to put it back to sleep just in case, and let's try the Acid, and yeah, it's not. It's a 2-hit KO still on this Pokemon, but we get through with no damage. Now on the second Venonat, we can put it to sleep. He X attacks. That means we've got a free turn, and since we know it's a 2-hit KO, once he stays asleep 1 turn, we know we've beaten that Pokemon. The third Venonat, we actually win the speed tie here. He goes an X attack. He stays asleep the next turn, and it doesn't matter what he does. We're going to knock him out here. So we're to the final Venomoth on full health. Now, looking at Venomoth's moveset, it knows Leech Life, Psychic, and Toxic, all of which Koga thinks are super effective against us because of Gen 1 AI. So we have a 1 in 3 chance that he won't damage us with a move here, or he could use an X attack, and that could give us a free turn. This time he goes Leech Life, but we managed to land the sleep. Now I'm going for Acid. We get a critical hit on the first one, but the second one ends it, and just like that, we get to level 34, and we have beaten Koga. 46 minutes, 30 seconds, we've gotten another gym badge, and it's only 13 resets up to this point in the game, which, considering that we've cut out more than half of the battles in the game up to this point, is actually pretty incredible, and we've only used 1 TM. Now we did drop 3 rare candies here, but really not that bad, and we now have a badge boost in speed. That means that as long as we don't level up in the middle of a fight, we can actually use Swords Dance to increase our speed even more until the point that we can outspeed our opponents. So now I think it is logical to go back and try our rival again, because if we can just manage to outspeed his team thanks to the badge boost glitch, which remember that first Sandslash is only going to use the move Poison Sting against us because of Gen 1 AI. We might actually have a pretty easy victory here. So let's try it out. We're going to try to put the Sandslash to sleep here, and we're actually already faster than this Pokemon thanks to the badge boost. Unfortunately, we just missed a couple sleep powders, but now we can set up the Swords Dances, and we should be able to outspeed all of his team, I think? We'll find out, but here Razor Leaf does get the one-hit KO on the first Pokemon. Let's try Razor Leaf on Cloyster. It gets the one-hitter as well. We level up to level 35 right here. So we are still faster than the Magneton, but pretty clearly we actually want to avoid using the Swords Dances until this Pokemon. We'd already outspeed the first two Pokemon without using Swords Dance. Still, we've made it to Kadabra. Kadabra has Smart AI, but maybe it just goes Confusion here, in which case we might get the win. We do knock him out right there. We are faster than the Flareon. I'm going to put it to sleep just to be safe, and now let's see what Acid does. It is a one-hit KO, so we didn't even need the sleep there, and we get to level 36 as we have beaten the Rival 5 fight. So yeah, still on super minimum battles. Yes, it took 3 rare candies, but really not bad at all. And now I don't expect Jesse and James or Giovanni to be too hard, so let's just get the free XP while we can. Now we don't have anything super good for taking out Pokemon like Weezing, so I will put this Pokemon to sleep and set up the Swords Dances. But after this, even Acid should be pretty decent as long as it doesn't crit. And it turns out to be a 3-hit KO on that Pokemon. Arbok's out next. We simply sleep this Pokemon as well and drop more Acid. We're just role-playing as Erica here and getting some easy victories. And with that, we just have to finish off Giovanni and we're done with Silph Co. So against Giovanni's Nidorino, it's only going to use Poison Sting yet again because of Smart AI, using the term very loosely here in Gen 1. And that means we can simply set up the Swords Dances, and at this point, Acid is probably the stronger move. It's going to be a 2-hit KO, but an easy victory, unless we get a critical hit, of course. Still, we managed to get through that Pokemon. We leveled up, but now we're just going to drop Acid on the Persian as well. Easy victory. Razor Leaf will one-shot the Rhyhorn. And now against Nidoqueen, I think we put this Pokemon to sleep just to be careful. But we're going to go for Razor Leaf because it 4 times resists Acid. I think this is still going to do the most damage. And we get an easy 3-hit KO there. So we get to level 38, Giovanni was a joke as usual, and we can now move on in the game. However, now we're hitting the point in the game where we have some actual challenges in front of us. We either have to go fight against Sabrina or Blaine. Now in Pokemon Yellow, these two trainers do not have Smart AI, which theoretically makes them a little bit easier than what we were dealing with in Pokemon Red and Blue. That being said, Sabrina does have really fast Pokemon and loves to use accuracy strats here, and Blaine, while he doesn't have Smart AI anymore in this version, doesn't use Super Potions on full health and has a much better team with a Ninetales and a Rapidash as opposed to that Growlithe and Ponyta that gives some free setups in his fight in Pokemon Red and Blue. So I honestly think that these fights might be a little bit harder here for us, but let's see how it actually works out. I'm going to start with Sabrina though, since she's just completely random and her first Pokemon can't damage us. Let's see if we can manage the victory. So first up is Abra in Pokemon Yellow. She's only going to use Flash, and of course we love getting flashed by Sabrina, but it's kind of bad here because it means that our sleep powders can't really hit. So instead, I'm going to go kind of a YOLO strat here. I'm just going to go all in on Swords Dance and then try to drop Acid. We one-shot the Abra there. We miss on the Kadabra though, but we hit the second one and knock it out. We took a Psywave, but that didn't mean that much damage. And then we outspeed Alakazam and one-shot it. So yeah, the YOLO strat works. 52 minutes, 15 seconds to beat Sabrina on super minimum battles. We have taken only 27 battles up to this point in the game. We've got 13 resets, 1 TM, but we're just cruising, guys. Cruising. Like, relatively speaking, I've seen Pokemon struggle to beat Sabrina in sub 1 hour real time when they were running on normal settings. And yet this Pokemon is completely crushing here, in spite of the fact that it's only at level 39. But now there's nothing to do on minimum battles other than to go fight Blaine. There are no other available trainers trainers at this point in the game, so we just kind of have to hope that this is enough. Now, at some point, we might have to think about changing our Razor Leaf to either Solar Beam or Mega Drain. Now, the argument for Mega Drain is that it allows us to heal damage in battle, so in some really tough fights, we might be able to just gain back enough HP from that move, considering that we will have 3 badge boosts from the Swords Dance in special, that it might work. The argument for Solar Beam, of course, is that it's significantly stronger. In fact, it's effectively stronger than the critical hit Razor Leaf that we're using, and it can benefit from badge boost glitch as well. So as long as we can put our opponents to sleep, Solar Beam can actually be really, really strong here. We're just gonna have to see if it works though, so I will get the Solar Beam TM. It says we have no space, so we're just gonna toss out things that we absolutely don't need, like TM11 here, and get TM22 instead. And honestly, I think in a lot of solo runs, people skip Solar Beam because it is a 2-turn move, so it's not great in that aspect. But if you're spamming sleep and you're under leveled, the extra power really can make the difference in a tough fight. Here for Blaine though, I think we're just gonna drop acid with him. I mean, he was a hippie in the Pokemon anime, so it kind of makes sense. And let's just see if our tolerance for using acid is more than his. Of course, if we could use Tombstoner, we would be guaranteed to KO him on the first attempt, but here we're just gonna have to hope to get the luck. So in Pokemon Yellow, he leads off with Ninetales, which knows Flamethrower, Tail Whip, Quick Attack, and Confuse Ray. What we really want to see here is Tail Whip. It's 1 in 4, but if we get it, then we actually get a badge boost in our speed in addition to the fact that he has not damaged us. Quick Attack's kind of the second best situation. Here we get the Tail Whip on the first attempt, and we're going to start setting up Swords Dance. We want to try to outspeed his Pokemon. Now, he goes Quick Attack after he wakes up, but I think with 2 Swords Dances, we will be able to outspeed here. And once we outspeed, we simply go for the Acid. It's going to be a 2-hit KO on that first Ninetales. Now we get to the Rapidash. It knows Stomp, Growl, Fire Spin, and Takedown. We really don't want to see Fire Spin here because it is still faster than us, unless of course Fire Spin misses, in which case we're super happy to see that move. And now we can drop Acid, 2 hits to knock out the Rapidash. We've made it to the final Pokemon, the Arcanine. We didn't level up, but we're 1 point of speed slower than this Pokemon, even after our 4 badge boosts. Here it goes Flamethrower and destroys us. So really all we need to do is get 2 Tail Whips from the first Ninetales, or we could also get a Growl from the Rapidash. That would allow us to outspeed, and we could just set up Swords Dance to get our attack up. So I think that's the way to go. So I'm not going to use any rare candies here. I'm simply going to try to get the luck to get the moves that I need, because if I can, then I think we have the victory. Keep in mind, he could also go something like Reflect with the Arcanine, and that would be perfectly fine with us as well. So this time we don't get the luck to get any of the moves that we need, but we still knock out Rapidash. We're on full health to the Arcanine, but Fire Blast, of course, is going to be too strong when his Pokemon is 15 levels higher than us. So this time we do get the Growl from the Rapidash. So we now have 129 speed thanks to the badge boost glitch. We'll just set up 1 more Swords Dance. We even now have 145 speed. We're still +6 in attack. And now because we outspeed, we can put this Pokemon to sleep, drop Acid. It's going to be 2 hits to knock that one out. But here we don't level up still, and we are faster than the Arcanine. We just need the Sleep Powder to hit. It does. We can go for Acid. It did about half here. We're going to put this Pokemon back to sleep and then hit it again, and we get the easy victory there after 7 attempts. It's really not that bad, considering that's like our worst matchup in all of Kanto. It took 59 minutes and 33 seconds to get through it, and we're up to 19 resets, but really, we had more resets than that on some Pokemon just getting through Misty. So this really isn't bad at all. And with that, we can make our way to Giovanni, where at least Razor Leaf is neutrally effective against everything there, and as long as we can badge boost up, I think we've got this. In fact, I don't think we need any rare candies in this section. We'll see. We'll just test things out, but I think that we've got a pretty good chance of getting through here with no rare candies used, and if we can do that, then we're pretty golden until the league. So let's just see if we can get through Giovanni here. His first Dugtrio has Dig, Fissure, Sand Attack, and Earthquake. We really want Fissure with a miss here, and that's exactly what we get, but then we miss our Sleep Powder. Fortunately, he guard specs the next turn, so we do get a manage to hit that Sleep Powder there. And now I'm setting up 3 Swords Dances, not because we want to use Acid in this fight, it's because we want to try to boost our speed. Now, unfortunately, we can't outspeed Dugtrio, and when it woke up, it did manage to land Fissure on us, but still, we at least have a decent shot of getting through here. This time, instead, he's going Sand Attack on us. We finally get that Pokemon to sleep, and I think we're going to be able to outspeed things once we set up our Swords Dances here, thanks to the fact that he dropped our accuracy, but unfortunately, he just knocks us out with an Earthquake after he wakes up. This time he guard specs turn 1 though, so yet again, we'll set up all the Swords Dances here. We just want to outspeed the Nidos. After that, we'll go Razor Leaf. It gets the easy 1-hit KO there. On Persian, I'm not going to mess around. I'm just going to go for Acid. He went for Double Team here, but fortunately, we hit both Acids there. And now we are faster than the Nidoqueen. We need to put this Pokemon to sleep, I think. So I'm going to put it to sleep and now go for the Razor Leaf. But actually, we might not need to put this Pokemon to sleep. I think he thinks that all of his moves are resisted except for Tail Whip, and that doesn't really matter to us. So let me test it out here on the Nidoking. He goes Leer and Leer again. Yeah, he's never going to use a damage dealing move because his AI thinks that Thunder is resisted by Grass, he thinks Double Kick is resisted by Poison, and he actually thinks that Grass resists Earthquake because it does. So while that move would be neutrally effective, he doesn't want to use it. So we make it all the way to the Rhydon at the end at level 42. Of course, we're going to outspeed here. I'm just going to go for the Razor Leaf, and we get the 1-hit KO with a critical hit and get to level 43. So Giovanni didn't take that much work to get through. An hour, 3 minutes, 26 seconds, 21 resets, so 2 resets there to get the luck to set up on the first Dugtrio. Really not bad at all. And with that, we can now make our way to Rival 6 in the league. And really, this Pokemon is performing incredibly well considering that it's lost so many battles that it normally would have at this point in the game. Think of how much XP we gave up to get here. While at these higher levels, sure, the XP doesn't add up to that much, we might be 4 or 5 levels higher without even using rare candies in a standard solo run. So now we'll come and fight against our rival. He still has the bad AI that causes him to only want to use Poison Sting here with his Sand Slash, but I think we're faster than this Pokemon and the next couple anyway, and we're pretty close to a level up. So I'm gonna see if I can just kind of brute force my way through. Of course, Sand Slash, we one-shot. We're going to Sleep Powder on this Execute, but wait a second, Execute only wants to use Poison Powder here, so yet again, we don't actually need the sleep. We can just get the easy 2-hit KO. Now to Cloyster, we are still faster than this Pokemon. I'm gonna go for the Razor Leaf and get the one-hitter. Now we level up coming into the Magneton, just like I thought we would. So this Pokemon I'm going to put to sleep so that I can start setting up these Swords Dances. Fortunately, he wouldn't want to use his electric moves here because we are grass type. But after we get all the setup, we can simply drop Acid and it's going to be an easy 2-hit KO. Kadabra comes out and we are 1 point of speed slower. Of course, Psybeam and Psychic and Reflect are on the moveset. If it uses Reflect, we get an easy victory. Go Psychic instead, but we survive and we easily knock that Pokemon out. Let's see if we one-shot Flareon. We do not, but it goes for Smog. Oh, so we get the free victory from the first attempt on the rival. Clearly, he's an amazing trainer, guys. Clearly, he deserves to be the champion when he should have just used Flamethrower and ended us there. He instead decides to go Smog of all moves. He's going to ask later, like, how could I lose? You know, I never made any mistakes playing Pokemon. We're going to say, dude, you used Smog on our Victreebel when you could have one-shot with the Flamethrower. This is how we know that the rival isn't actually that smart. So now it's on to the league, and the question really is just how are we going to do against Lorelei and against Agatha, I think. I think we can find ways through everything else. Those are the two that I'm most nervous about. Obviously, Lorelei has lots of ice moves, and if we don't outspeed, we'll get knocked out pretty easily. We're going to have to go for a lot of sleep there, because I don't think that we're really going to be like one-shotting her Pokemon. They're too bulky. And then Agatha, the issue is, of course, that we don't deal that much damage with either of our moves. Razor Leaf is resisted by all of her Pokemon, as is Acid. And so we're just going to have to kind of see if the Swords Dance boosts boosts our damage enough there. Now we do have 6 rare candies in the bag, so we could get up to level 50 right now. We're so close to a level up though that I want to avoid that if possible before we go into the Lorelei fight, and let's just see if we can manage to get this one to go. Before I go in though, I am going to get access to a few TMs that I think could be useful here in the right situations. Now the first TM we're going to get is Hyper Beam. Because we are running a Swords Dance set, Hyper Beam makes way too much sense. It could allow us to sweep later in the game. We're also going to get access to Mimic. Mimic could be really useful if in certain points later in the game, especially if we need a different damage dealing move. We could even use it to mimic Lick from Agatha's Gengar, for example, in order to have a way to deal super effective damage against ghosts. But for now, let's just take our moveset as it is and see if we can manage to beat Lorelei here. This could be tough, and it probably comes down to whether or not we outspeed against that first Dugong. And of course, Dugong has 89 speed. We have only 83 speed, so we're not going to be faster here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to damage this Pokemon a little bit, hoping that it uses Rest on turn 2. And it did give us an attack drop with that first Aurora Beam, which already boosted our speed with the badge boost glitch. So we can actually now simply go in for the kill on this Pokemon. It's going to take 2 Razor Leafs to knock it out. Out next is Cloyster, and unfortunately we leveled up, so we're still 2 speeds too slow to outspeed Cloyster. It's going to go Ice Beam here, and we're basically going to lose. So it's clear that we have to use some rare candies here before Lorelei. The question is how many? I'm going to try to boost my speed until I'm faster than that Dugong. So we ended up having to get to level 48 here. That leaves 2 rare candies in the bag, but I think that's the requirement in order to actually be able to get through this one. Now that we outspeed Dugong, we can simply go Sleep Powder on it and now start setting up the Swords Dances. And since we're not about to level up here, we don't have to worry about losing our badge boosts midway through the fight. We can simply put Dugong back to sleep, as it's probably stronger here than Razor Leaf at this point. We get an easy 2-hit KO. We'll put the Cloyster to sleep as well. Let's try the Razor Leaf since it has really high defense and lower special. We get the easy 1-hitter. Slowbro's out next. Yet again, sleep, Razor Leaf. It's going to be a 2-hit KO here, but an easy victory nonetheless there. Out comes the Jinx, and we are faster. I'm just going to go Acid and get the easy 1-hitter. We level up right here on the Lapras, but we're already faster, so we just put it to sleep. It can't go Blizzard here. We're just going to go for the Razor Leafs, get an easy 2-hit KO range there, and just like that, we beat Lorelei on the second attempt. And now I honestly don't think we have anything to worry about against Bruno, so we're just going to go in without any healing or restoring PP. Let's just destroy this guy. Now really the only thing we're worried about here is that his Hitmon's no double team. So I'm going to put the Onix to sleep just to set up a couple Swords Dances just to guarantee that I outspeed against those Pokemon. And then we'll simply go Razor Leaf on Onix to one-shot it. Hitmonchan's out next. I'll drop Acid here. It's going to be a 2-hit KO, but Thunder Punch doesn't matter. We easily get through. Hitmonlee is the fastest Pokemon on his team. We already outspeed those, so we'll simply put it to sleep. And yet again, let's just drop some Acid. We get an easy 1-hitter. We get to level 50 here, and now we're just going to easily knock out the Onix. And Machamp is slow, so we don't really even need to worry about this Pokemon too much. He X-defends, which is actually a good strategy, and he goes Strength, but it doesn't matter. We easily get the victory on the first attempt against Bruno. So that was easy, but now we have to find a way through Agatha, and this is the trainer that I'm actually the most worried about. I think I have strategies for everything else in mind already. This is the one where really, outside of Mimic, there's nothing good that we can do here. Still, I'm going to try it. Let's just see with badge boosts, etc., if we can get the ranges that we need. So here we are against the first Gengar. Of course, we're never going to outspeed this Pokemon. She licks us, and then she uses Substitute. Now, you can put an opponent to sleep in Gen 1 even when they have Substitute set up. It wasn't changed until later gens that you couldn't use Sleep on Pokemon behind a Substitute. Unfortunately, we were confused. We hit ourselves multiple times and then get a wing attack, so we simply lose. So this one's going to be very, very random, and we're just going to have to hope to get the luck eventually. Now, once we get all the Swords Dances set up, I'm just going to see what kind of ranges we get here. Acid was enough to break the Substitute, and it looks like it's going to be a 4-hit KO here. She uses Substitute again, so we're simply going to put her to sleep, and now she swaps out to the Golbat, but Golbat's defense was dropped, so we knock it out in 2 acids. Gengar wakes up here. We're going to have to put it to sleep again after it uses Substitute. She actually resets how many super potions she uses per Pokemon after she swaps. So she uses 2 here, but now we can actually knock the Gengar out. We get to level 51 here though, so we lose our badge boosts and speed. Fortunately, Haunter tries to go Dream Eater while we're awake, so no problem there. But now it uses Hypnosis, it confuses us, it Dream Eaters us, and that's probably all she wrote for this one, as we simply go down. So this might be a fight to actually use a rare candy here, just so that we don't hopefully level up until at least the very end of the fight, because in that case we can keep our badge boosts against the Haunter and Arbok and guarantee that we outspeed there. Unfortunately, with one rare candy, we're still 1 point of speed too slow to outspeed the Gengar after setting up all the Swords Dances, but we can once again go for the acid spam. We get a nice defense drop on the Gengar, so we knock it out pretty easily here. We're on to Golbat, which we already outspeed. We'll just put this Pokemon to sleep. We're still going to stick with acid since we've got all the attack boosts and it's only 2 times resisted, whereas Razor Leaf's 4 times resisted. We get a 3-hit KO range here after a defense drop. Of course, a critical hit messes with that, but we do manage to knock that Pokemon out. We can put Haunter to sleep. Now we put Arbok to sleep. We're not actually that close to a level up here though, so I'm going to let Arbok stay awake, hoping that it used Screech on me. Instead, it used Glare, so we get paralyzed. So at this point, there's nothing to do other than simply put it back to sleep and knock it out the next turn. Gengar at the very end is the one that's scary. Now, because we're paralyzed, we can't be put to sleep, so we'd love Hypnosis or Dream Eater here. It's a 50-50 chance to get one of those moves. Confuse Ray will suck because we're paralyzed. It effectively doubles the chance that we won't move. And Psychic, of course, will do massive damage. We get the Confuse Ray, of course, which we really did not want to see here. Then she goes Dream Eater while we're awake. We're just missing all the sleep powders here. We do finally get it to sleep though, so now it's just a question of what range do we get with acid. We get a defense drop on the first one, so it's gonna be a 3-hit KO and 3 attempts to get through Agatha, and it just was a matter of using that rare candy. We actually managed to win. So with that out of the way, we are ready to move on to Lance. And now against Lance, I think there is actually a really obvious strategy. I am going to use TM33 for Reflect. Now, the reason I want to have Reflect here is because the Aerodactyl, no matter what we do, is going to do massive damage with either Wing Attack or Fly here. However, with Reflect, we effectively double our defense in the damage calculation, so we effectively cut its damage output in half. And since we're never going to outspeed there, this is probably the best way to get through. I'm going to forget Razor Leaf here, because we've got Mega Drain and Solar Beam in the bag if we actually want to use either of those moves. And I think Acid is the go-to play here against Lance. So let's see if this is enough. Let's see if we outspeed his team in this first attempt. I think Gyarados is faster though. And sure enough, Gyarados has 108 speed, so we're going to have to get a pretty good range here. We put this Pokemon to sleep. Now we're going to set up Swords Dance. And once we outspeed, I'm also going to set up the Reflect right here, because Reflect lasts the whole battle in Gen 1. And now we'll just start dropping Acid. This is going to be a 2-hitter on the Gyarados. It's an easy victory as long as we don't get a crit there. Now on the Dragonair, again without a crit, this might be a 1-hitter. Sure enough, it is. We get to Aerodactyl without leveling up here. It goes Fly, there's nothing we can do about that, but we do survive, only to then miss our sleep powder and a critical hit Wing Attack knocked us out. Still, I think we can get to the Dragonite, and then it's just a question of how we do on that Pokemon. So this time we got leered by this first Gyarados, and that makes me feel like maybe we should just wait for the level up before we set up our Swords Dances. So I'm going to try hitting Gyarados with Acid here and just see what kind of range we get. We do manage to knock it out. We're already faster than the Dragonair, so we'll simply put this Pokemon to sleep, and as long as it stays asleep, we'll just spam the Acid here as well. It's a 4-hitter on the Dragonairs normally, but a 3-hitter with a defense drop. So back again to Aerodactyl. It uses Fly, of course, and it crits again, so we simply lose. Aerodactyl has a really high 25% critical hit chance, so we're gonna have to hope for a situation where we don't get that level of luck from him. It's a 3 in 4 chance that he won't get a critical hit there, and it's a 50-50 chance that he will use Wing Attack instead of Fly. Either of those cases helps us get through this. 4th attempt, we get a Wing Attack here, only for us to then miss the Sleep Powder yet again and get knocked out on the next turn. We had 1 defense drop due to Leer, which certainly affected the ranges there. Now, I'm really reluctant to use the last rare candy in the bag, but this might be the situation where we simply have to. We'll get to level 53. We will avoid that level up before the Aerodactyl. That might be what we need. So we get back to Aerodactyl here. We do manage to get it to sleep this time. We get a defense drop with the first Acid, so it's a 2-hit KO. We don't level up before the Dragonite, so we're still faster, but we miss the Sleep Powder and get knocked out by a Fire Blast. Still, this one is clearly possible now that we've used the rare candy. We just have to get the luck. So several attempts later, we're back to the Dragonite. We hit sleep this time. We go for Acid. It does exactly half, and then we knock it out on the next turn. So it took 12 attempts to get through Lancey Boy there. It was the most inconsistent fight of the entire run so far. But given the fact that we really lost a ton of XP going through this, like you could get to about level 60 here normally, in which case we would be already outspeeding against that Gyarados, and we might even be able to badge boost enough to outspeed the Aerodactyl, especially with 1 Leer. I feel pretty good about how we're doing here. Now, of course, we will not be able to manipulate our badge boosts late in the rival fight here, but I think we already are going to outspeed against things like the Magneton, the Cloyster, and the Flareon. We'll see if that's actually the case, but for now, I'm simply going to recover my PP and use a full restore, and I don't think Reflect does anything for us at this point, so I'm going to replace that move. And the question is just, do we go Solar Beam? Do we go Hyper Beam? Do we go for something like Mega Drain? I'm actually going to go Hyper Beam here, just because I think we're going to start sweeping things with the Swords Dance Hyper Beam setup. So we'll forget Reflect here, add on Hyper Beam. That will be our last TM, and let's just see if this is enough. So against the champion Sandslash, we're already faster, but this Pokemon's only going to use Poison Sting anyway. So we're just going to put this Pokemon to sleep and start setting up the Swords Dances right here, because really we're worried about Alakazam. I don't think we can outspeed Alakazam no matter what we do, but we're at least going to have more special by setting up the badge boosts here. Now we can simply Hyper Beam and one-shot that Pokemon. Alakazam, I don't think we need to mess around with anything. I think it's just a matter of Acid, but a critical hit Psychic will knock us out no matter what we do. He can go Psybeam or Psychic there, so we really want to see Psybeam. Kinesis can also miss. We'd be fine with that, but we don't really want an accuracy drop, so we'd prefer Psybeam if anything at that point. But now I think Acid is strong enough to knock this Pokemon out if we can ever see the range without a crit here. So we finally get a non-critical hit Psybeam, and sure enough, Acid one-shots there. Exeggutor is out next, and this Pokemon's only going to want to use Hypnosis, Stomp, and Barrage against us. So I'm simply going to put this Pokemon to sleep just to avoid the status. And then we can simply drop Acid on this Pokemon to get the easy one-hitter. Now we are faster than the Magneton. I'm just going to Hyper Beam here and get the one-hitter. Cloyster, yet again, we outspeed. Hyper Beam misses though, so we get our reset there. Still, I think we could get that one to go. Back to the Cloyster on the next attempt. Hyper Beam does get the one-shot. We're to the Flareon. We're faster. We just need to land the hit. We miss with the Hyper Beam. He hits us with Fire Spin, but we survive, and then Hyper Beam is the one-hit KO. So just like that, we managed to beat the champion in about an hour 35 and 14 seconds. And we still had an S tier score at the end, 93.2 on my scoring system. I count off 1/10 of a point for resets because, of course, when you're running something like super minimum battles, yeah, there are going to be some spots that aren't consistent, but still possible. Like, this is very, very reasonable overall. And we only used 3 TMs to get through that. No optional battles. We didn't have to go mimic or rest or substitute or any of those kind of generic broken TMs that I don't like to use. Victreebel is just kind of OP in Pokemon Yellow. This Pokemon is just way too strong. And so it really didn't have that bad of a split on the Elite Four. Of course, Lance was the first big wall that we ran into, but we had a strategy for him with the Reflect strats plus the Badge Boost glitch, which is just, again, something that makes this Pokemon really, really good. And just like that, the rival's gonna ask what he did wrong, and clearly what he did wrong was he didn't run on super minimum battles. He ran this whole team of Pokemon and he spent so much time grinding, trying to get them levels. That's not how you beat the game, guys. When you can do this with a Victreebel, just get a Victreebel and just crush Kanto. Come on. We can register our Super Bell into the Hall of Fame. At level 55, we beat the game. Of course, we've got our HM Mule. I play approximately at 4 times speed. That's why it's 6 hours of playtime. But honestly, if you were running this normally, like at 1 time speed, you would have a much faster time here. It's just because I waste a lot of time talking. But yeah, I'm not sure that this was the way that the game was meant to be played, but I think we have proven that it is the way that solo runs should really be judged from now on. If you can beat the game on super minimal battles and get an S tier finish from me, that tells you that a Pokemon is truly the best of the best. And now there's nothing to do but just complete some research for Professor Oak here. We're gonna take him back to his psychedelic hippie days when he was a youngin' by dropping some acid with him. Let's see how this goes. So first up against the Tauros, Takedown did massive damage to us. Then it uses Tail Whip though. We're pretty close to a level up here, so I'm not sure that we actually want to set up on this Pokemon. I'm just going to put it to sleep and start dropping acid. And fortunately, we're getting some defense drops, so we easily get through that first Pokemon. Out next is the Exeggutor, which we are faster than, and we just leveled up. So I'm going to set up all my Swords Dances right here to get as much speed as possible. Now we will simply drop acid here and get the easy one-hit KO. Arcanine's out next, and we are just a little bit faster. Ember still does really good damage though, and if we miss or misclick to use Swords Dance, of course we lose. Sorry guys, I do have low vision. That's the reason why I made that mistake there. I misread what was on the screen. Basically, after staring at the screen for an hour, I can no longer see. You know, I've got like a ring light in my face, plus the monitor glare, and my eyes are just shot at this point, sorry. So in this one, attempt number 4, we're getting a much better range on the Tauros. I'm just going to set up a couple Swords Dances here, and then let's knock this Pokemon out pretty quickly with the acid. Now Exeggutor, let's put it back to sleep. We'll Swords Dance one more time here, and then just acid to take it down. Arcanine's out next, but it only knows Ember, and I keep going that Swords Dance by mistake. Rip. This time we do manage to get Arcanine to sleep though. I'm going to go for the Hyper Beam here. We just keep missing the Hyper Beams. Finally, we do knock it out though. Charizard is faster. There's nothing we can do. It's going to go Fire Spin or Flamethrower. We were hoping for a Fire Spin miss here, I think, and unfortunately we don't get it, so we lose on this attempt. The question now is just really if we can get a range where we'll survive, but at this point I think our best play might actually be to add on Mega Drain, just because we could then heal up a little bit on that Tauros just to get back to full health, and maybe that gives us a chance to survive against a Flamethrower. So I'm going to forget Acid in order to learn Mega Drain here. Leer is also very nice because it gives us another badge boost. Here Mega Drain with crits actually manages to get us a 4-hit range there on the first Tauros. We're on to Exeggutor, where we just need to land asleep and set up our Swords Dances here. And from here on out, we're basically hoping to sweep with the Hyper Beam. So we can knock out that Arcanine. We're to the Charizard. It goes Fire Spin here, and in that case, we need the miss. Instead, we survive there against that Flamethrower now, now, and we level up just before the Gyarados, and we are slower than this Pokemon, so we're hoping that it uses Leer. It does use Leer, but then we miss, so unfortunately we lost that attempt. We should have just gone for the Hyper Beam though, not the Sleep. I think that's the way to go. So it's pretty clear that going straight for the Charizard team isn't a great situation for us though. I've tried it quite a few times and had 13 resets. So instead, let's take them in order from easiest to most difficult. Let's see if we can get through the Blastoise team. Here I accidentally chose the Venusaur team instead, but we're already faster than Venusaur with Hyper Beam, so we're simply going to one-shot that Pokemon. We do level up right here before the Gyarados, but anything other than a Hyper Beam shouldn't knock us out. Hyper Beam will knock us out though, because we have 2 defense drops here. He goes Leer instead, so that's perfectly fine. We'll go for the Hyper Beam now and finish off the first Oak. So now Blastoise team time, and we're just going to see if the extra XP that we get enables us to then be able to get through that Charizard team at least somewhat reliably. And of course, if we just get put to sleep and can't ever move because we miss 1 sleep powder, we even lose to the Exeggutor here. So here, unfortunately, we level up just before the Arcanine. So it does get to hit us with a super effective Ember and knock us out there. I think a non-crit still wouldn't have knocked us out though, so I'm going to keep grinding on this one. Sure enough, a non-critical hit allows us to simply get through that one, and now Blastoise again is faster, but it's only going to use physical moves here. Unfortunately, we couldn't land the sleep. If we got it to sleep, we could have started Mega Draining to recover HP, and I think we would have been fine. So this time we managed to set up all of our badge boosts on the Arcanine though, so we one-shot Arcanine and Blastoise, and we can one-shot the final Gyarados even though we were burned, thanks to the fact that we set up so many Swords Dances. So now at level 58, we're finally ready to come back to the Charizard team. We're kind of in the same situation. We're about to level up here, so let's just see if this is finally enough. So now when we set up these Swords Dances here against the Exeggutor, we end up with 159 speed, which should be enough to outspeed the Charizard here. So we're just going to spam the Hyper Beam the rest of the way. And here at level 59, we are definitely getting through this as long as we don't get one shot here for some reason by the Gyarados. It goes Hyper Beam and it takes us down. We need to avoid that Hyper Beam, otherwise we would have had it. This time we get Leer from the Gyarados and we get a critical hit from our Hyper Beam, but it used Leer on us again, so we actually outsped there and we knock it out. So it took tons and tons of resets to get through the 3 Oaks, 23 resets to be exact. But in the end, Victreebel on super minimum battles beats all 3 Professor Oaks and can go down as a champion. Anyway, that was a heck of a lot of fun. So next time we are going to come back with this Pokemon in Pokemon Red and Blue, because I think there's going to be some very interesting differences in that run, especially Sabrina, Blaine, and even that Lance fight. Lance's Aerodactyl doesn't know Fly in Pokemon Red and Blue, so I don't think the Reflect strat is even going to be necessary, except maybe against the rival and the champion, but we'll just have to see. But for now, Super Bell in Pokemon Yellow, absolutely incredible. Makes me wonder if on perfect stats, it might even be better than Mewtwo and Mew. Those will be 2 upcoming runs, but anyway, I appreciate you guys for hanging out with me today. Hope you enjoyed this one. I will see you in the next one. Later.